As human beings, we're in a constant process of decision making. Over the course of our lives, we'll make millions of choices and decisions. So we make very big decisions like, are we going to get married or buy a new house? And we make very small choices like, should I drink soda or water? And we make a multitude of medium-sized but vitally important decisions about how we treat the people that interact with us on a daily basis. When we become conscious of the decisions we're making, we can consciously create the world we want to experience, and through that process, create a dramatic difference in the lives of others as well. When I was born, my parents were running children's homes. I had over 350 foster brothers and sisters by the time I was 14. And not only that, we lived next to a prison, and when prisoners came out of prison and they had nowhere to live, they would come and live with us as well. And actually, the same story with a psychiatric hospital just down the road. So, in fact, I learned a lot about human beings when I was a kid. And I saw the outcome of 300 broken marriages, 300 situations that have caused children to really operate from a place of fear. My parents believed that as soon as anybody came into our house, they were a part of the family, and they deserved as much care and respect as anybody else. About 10 years ago, I walked into a friend's kitchen, and not many people can claim that their life was transformed by a fridge magnet, but that's exactly what happened to me. This was the magnet that I saw on the fridge. The purpose of our lives is to be happy. And in that moment, this seemed like a profound truth, but also totally obvious to me. And I've gone on to study this idea, and I've now defined happiness as follows. Happiness is the extent to which we live in love, as opposed to living in fear. So we've gone on to create an exercise for children, which we lay out a 10-foot piece of paper on the floor. And at one end, we write the word love. And at the other end, we write the word fear. And we give the children cards with different values and behaviour words on there. And we ask the children to place the words on this continuum between love and fear. And of course, we make no judgment about where they put the words. That's entirely up to them. But it does start a powerful conversation about one of the core factors that causes human beings to make decisions. Is the decision I'm making based on fear, or is it based on love? One of the other factors that really drives our decision making is the question, which is, how big is our world? In my village, between the trees and the river, there's a place where the kids go and park their cars and they eat their fast food. In that moment, their world is only as big as the car that they're sitting in. And so the problem with these empty fast food cars is really no problem at all. All they need to do is to wind down the window and throw the stuff out. And now they've just solved their problem. Their world is now clean again. So my hope would be that when their level of consciousness grows, so that they associate themselves with the size of the village, that they would drive to the next village and throw the stuff out there. Of course, that's not what I'm advocating. However, it does paint a picture about how big we see our world, whether we see it as our family, or our village, or our region, or our country, or even the whole planet. That has an impact on the way that our values and our behaviours get lived out. It's a critical question: how big is our world? Some time ago, I was introduced to John Hunter and his remarkable work with the World Peace Game. And over the course of a number of weeks of gameplay, John takes the children on a mind-expanding journey. And as they play this game through the medium of play, through the medium of a game, what they're facing is the four big factors that divide human beings. These are gender, race, religion, and politics. And over the course of the gameplay, they're moving from village kids to citizens of the planet. Their world is as big as the planet they work on, they live on. We have another exercise that we use called the Rollercoaster of perception. We line kids up in 2 rows, and on the left-hand side, we tell the kids, you're going to have an amazing time on this roller coaster. You're going to love every second, you're going to throw your arms in the air, you're going to scream with joy. And on the right-hand side, we tell the kids to do exactly the opposite. So you're going to feel sick, you're going to feel ill, you're going to hate every minute, and you want to get off. And we play the video, and they play their parts wonderfully. And at the end of it, we switch the kids over, and we ask them to play the opposite role. And at the end, we ask the question, so what is it, a good roller coaster or a bad roller coaster? And in that moment, the children realized that the roller coaster was just a roller coaster. And it's their perception that creates all the ideas of good and bad. And in fact, life is about 5% what happens to us, and 95% how we choose to respond to it. And when we understand that we have the choice to make those conscious decisions about how we respond to the situation, that's empowering. Underlying all this work is a model that enables us to measure the values and the culture and the consciousness of human groups. This is called the Barrett Set of Modes of consciousness, and we're going to look at this afternoon through the lens of education, but we're using this model to measure human groups in teams, in schools, in corporations, and even whole nations now where the governments are asking us to help them understand what's important to their people. So let's look at this firstly through the lens of education. We're looking at this where understanding that every one of us has got needs which are physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual. So at the physical level, we're looking at basic foundational things like, are we sending the children to school in the morning having had a healthy, nutritious breakfast, or a soda and a pizza? As we get up to the relationship level, we find the foundations of just building positive relationships, so respect in the classroom, for example. Self-esteem is about building confident children and academic excellence. And transformation is about challenging the status quo, having the courage to bring new ways of teaching and mind and heart into the classroom. I want to tell you the story of the teacher in this picture. A few years ago, I spent a few days in a school in rural Kenya, and this is a photograph of the science teacher proudly showing us the entire resources for science teaching in the school. Now, I joined the biology lesson on osmosis, and during the experimentation phase, one of the girls was labelling the Petri dish for the experiment, and she misspelled the word distilled. And so the teacher saw this mistake. He only had 2 labels left in his entire world. And without blinking, he peeled off another label and gave it to this girl and helped her to understand what her mistake was and asked her to write a new label for the Petri dish. I'll never forget that moment. It was a moment of understanding that under conditions of poverty and scarcity that most of us wouldn't even understand, he wasn't driven by a fear of scarcity. He was driven by a desire for transformation and academic excellence. So when we move back into the model, we find the spiritual levels. So the internal cohesion level is about a sense of meaning and purpose and building trust in between human beings. The making a difference level is about really finding out our partnerships and the ability to care for the environment. And at the service level, this is when making a difference becomes a way of life. And it's our ability to live with compassion and forgiveness and truly make a difference in the lives of others. So let me tell you a story that shows you how we use this to measure the culture in schools and classrooms. We were working with a school in Lossiemouth, which is in the far north of Scotland. It gets very cold there in the winter. And we measured a number of groups within the school. So I want to show you the picture of the current culture as seen by these different groups. So firstly, these are the words that the students used to describe the culture of the school. The red words are words that are driven by fear. The blue words are positive values. Next I want to show you the words that the teachers used to describe how they saw the school. So they have a different picture, but actually, overall, this is a healthy looking picture. And finally, the last group I want to show you was the non-teaching staff within the school. They were shocked about what they found. This wasn't at all what they expected. And actually, as you see in here, some of the groups in the school were pretty happy with how things were operating. But there was a group who were pretty distressed and frustrated with how things were operating. Now, the important part of this story is not the data. The important part of this story is the fact that these people had the courage to sit down and use this data to understand what people really wanted. what they desired in order to create a high-performing situation for everybody. They've worked on this every day for the last 5 years. It's entirely part of their process, to the degree that students are now invited to conferences to talk about building high-performing school cultures. So this is Terry Lott. He's a friend of mine. He works in Australia. He's spent 10 years studying the idea of explicit values-based education. Values-based education would be when you figure out your values and you live them. Explicit values-based education is when you figure out your values and you live them and you talk about them as well. What he talks about is, as he observes this over the last 10 years, he's found dramatic improvements in student and teacher relationships, improvements in well-being, much calmer environments with less conflict, higher student self-belief and self-esteem, a rise in the levels of politeness, courtesy, open friendliness, better manners, offers of help, and students being more kind and considerate to each other. And by the way, great higher levels of academic diligence. Preparing for this conference, I was invited to run a values assessment of the education system in the USA. So we invited people who were in this room to take a values assessment that looked at 3 areas. The first area was for you to select your personal values. What's the most important to you? The second question was, select the values and behaviours that most reflect how the school system in the USA currently operates. And the third was, select the values and behaviours you would desire in order for the school system to achieve its highest performance. Before I show you the results, I want to paint a picture for you. I want you to imagine you're working with a group of people, and I'm going to read you some qualities of these people. So paint a picture in your mind's eye. These people base their lives on loving and respectful family relationships. They focus on professional growth and continuous learning so that through their work they can excel in making a difference in the lives of others. Creativity and innovation are the tools that allow them to challenge the status quo and bring transformation in so many ways, big and small. They do all of this with enthusiasm and humour and fun, because that adds to the joy of living. Above all, they know what it means to hold compassion in their hearts, to take a stand from a place of love as they serve their fellow human beings. Well, you don't have to imagine too hard, because that's you, and that's the people that are sat around you in this room. These are the personal values of the people in US education. And what a remarkable set of words. Let's go on to look at how you experience what your perception of the current education system in the USA looks like. As you can see here, this is a very different picture. And as I said before, the white dots in the picture here reflect the red words, which are all what we consider to be fear-based values. And in fact, 2 white dots in a current culture is enough to tell us that it will be undermining the ability for people to feel fulfilled in their role. This is not one single organisation, of course, and I know that there are many wonderful teachers and education establishments in the USA. However, this is your collective perception of how you see the education system. If this were a single corporation, I'd say a couple of things about this. One is, I'd say this is a toxic culture. People will be getting sick in this culture, physically sick. And also, I'd fully expect there to be signs of both mental and emotional distress in here. In fact, my colleague, actually, when she saw these results, she said, this is a story of triumph. It's a story of triumph that these people are still showing up, and they're still showing up for the kids. So, thank you. Let me go on to show you now your collective perception of what you would like the system to be. And of course, this is just a snap in time. As things move on, things would change. But you remember that middle level, the level with the circle there in the middle, is the level of transformation. And this is not a call for change. This is a scream for full-scale transformation of the system. I wonder if the values of innovation and creativity that sit right up there on the top are a collective response to what's happening with the budgets at the moment. And people wanted to say, let's figure this out for ourselves. Let's empower ourselves. every teacher, without exception, within the US education system I've showed this to so far, says that results focus and accountability stands for one thing, and that's the no child left behind policy. You may or may not agree with that, but while I think there's a wonderful idea behind that, what I'm hearing is that there are real challenges in the way it's being implemented, and not everybody's seeing this as a positive picture. What I'm seeing in the design culture here is something about creating an environment that goes beyond standardized testing and goes into an area where educators can help the children to really start to figure out how they live their lives in a much more holistic sense. We also asked one other question. In 30 words or less, what guidance would you give to President Obama for the next steps or priorities to transform the education system in the USA? We got many, many wonderful responses. And in fact, some of them are contradictory. So that means that there's a great conversation going on here. And again, all of those responses will be published for you to look at. I chose just one response because in the most amazing style of the best education, this response was not an answer. It was in fact another question. What does it really mean to educate a child? In April this year, I had a family holiday in Egypt. And on the last day, we heard about an event that had happened in one of the local towns. There had been religious violence going on between the different religious groups. And in this particular town, one day, when the Muslims went to the square to pray, the Christians followed them. And they held hands in a circle to protect the Muslims while they were praying. And in the evening, when the Christians went to the church to pray, the Muslims followed them and held hands in a circle around the church to protect them while they prayed. So this is a story that reflects the two big messages here. This is a story that reflects the idea that this was a response of love based on a situation very clearly based in fear. And for all these people, their world just took a very important step in getting that much bigger. Thank you.